Okay, when you do tabletop role-playing game content on YouTube, it has to be obvious that you're doing content for nerds. And what are nerds like? They pick apart just about everything or anything that you put in front of them. For example, would be the topic of immersion in tabletop role-playing games. Now, when we examine the word immersion, that can mean a ton of things. Like, so much that if you try to say it covers a part of what we're doing in tabletop role-playing games, to a degree, overall, you might be wrong. Well, you would be wrong, because you're saying, what are you drowning in the fucking game? What do you mean by immersed? So, when I bring up immersion, I always give the definition of what I mean. So, I'm talking about the type of immersion that you're in when you're watching that movie and you're focused on that movie. Your imagination is running on what could be happening or what might happen, and you're just into the character, into the story. You're focused. Now, somebody from 10 feet away says your name. It's not that you can't hear them, it's just your mind doesn't take it in because your mind's so occupied with the movie, so focused on that movie, that everything around you disappears. Like, your attention is there. That person would have to come up and poke you to get your attention on the spot. Saying your name might not work. So, when I talk about being immersed into a tabletop role-playing game, I'm really talking about the gaming session, and for you to be as immersed into the gaming session as you were into that movie. Now, when some people talk about immersion, they'll confuse the triggers that will get you to the immersed state with immersion itself. Like, immersion means to care about your character. No. Caring about your character could be a trigger to get you immersed into the game. You know, a lot of new players on their first session, they're naive, and almost in a good way. They're ignorant. And for that reason, without knowing what it is to be their character, they'll jump into character. Like, just by accident, jump into character. Be the character for that first session. And a lot of people on their first session will encounter what I call the drug. Right? They'll be focused. They'll be immersed. Their imagination is fucking running wild because there's no poison in their mind getting in the way of just them doing it as if they were still a kid. Because kids, when they play these games, they're great. They love them. The wall that would stop, adult players from having fun, that does not exist for kids. And if you're a newer player as an adult, you can have that experience, especially on your first session. And when you get immersed in the way that I define it into a gaming session, that is the drug. That will keep you coming back to this hobby to repeat that experience, or to look to repeat that experience for decades, forever. It's what keeps many people here now, from being a child till now, because that drug is so fucking addictive, and it is unique. It is a unique way of feeling that is unlike any other way. The way you're having that experience is very special. It gives an oomph, right, to what you're going through. So years ago, nobody would mention immersion outside of game theory. There was an old game theory to do with tabletop role-playing games that most people dropped, ignored after so long, but it was pushed for a little while. And within that game theory was the people that were pushing it were talking about immersion. And I separated that from all the other, shit that they put into that game theory. And I said to myself, I think this does explain an element of the game for real that we are looking to get. Like, if I were to try to put into words what makes a tabletop role-playing game unique, well, clearly it's going to come down to the experience that you have with the game. And that experience, if I were really to nail it, is you being immersed into a gaming session. That's it. And if you're immersed, you're at the top of the mountain. You've reached your peak. And on my previous YouTube channel, I did probably like a 60 or 80 videos about immersion. I was just doing like immersion videos every second day. Nobody was talking about it. No one was using the word immersion to try to explain what we were going through outside of the game theory. It was part of a game theory package, and an idea that again just never held water forever. It didn't spread to everyone. But in that, they talked about immersion, and it wasn't even something that I even talked about right away. It was only like 5 years after that game theory had been sort of forgotten, ignored, that I picked up that part of it and said, I'm going to drill this out of nowhere. Nobody was using the word immersion at all, so I did a bunch of videos until people started talking about it. I just don't think many people understood when they were hearing me talk about it that I was the one introducing the word immersion as a way to explain, to define the experience that we were after in a tabletop role-playing game. And I mean everyone. Like, no matter the differences in themes or taste or whatever, this one thing is the thing that we are all after, that we all seek. Given that I pushed this, I made this into a thing. Yeah, when I hear people talking about immersion and they're all over the place, it can annoy me. I try not to be too ignorant, be too judgmental of how people come at a subject, but I just confess, it can annoy me, right? Because I have put so much effort into pushing this whole thing. On top of that, when I first started pushing this, nerds would pick apart my use of the word immersion because I wasn't giving an explanation very clearly. I was being semi-vague, and nerds decided, well, we won't take in what you're trying to say. We're only going to focus on how you fucked up. And so your message will be ignored. What you're trying to spread here will not spread. So I had to realize that every time I talked about immersion, I had to give it the basic definition of what I meant by it to avoid that. And guess what? The giving the basic definition does work with nerds, but if you don't, sometimes they'll pick apart what you're saying, and for whatever message, whatever thing you were trying to say, will be forgotten. And I'm cool with people talking about it. It's not like I want to control anyone from talking about it. It bothers me that there's people out there that will push the topic in this vague way. And I know that means a lot of people that will come across their content will first dismiss them, but they're also dismissing the topic, the thing I pushed. Anyway, for future reference, now you know what I mean by immersion in tabletop role-playing games. I understand that the word immersion has a wide meaning. It can cover a lot of things. Right? There's a lot of things you could explain under the word immersion, what it is to be immersed in something. I don't have a wide, an extreme big definition for immersion with tabletop role-playing games. It's nothing more simple than the example I gave you where somebody is watching a movie. That's it. Right? So, yeah. I want myself, even as a game master, to be that immersed into a gaming session. And to me, that is the drug. That is what the hobby has to offer you that is special. And you will not have the same experience with that anywhere else. That's it. You only get it here. Anyway, for now, take care.